Next, we'll be talking about Section 3, the Anthropocene.
The word Anthropocene derives from the Greek anthropos, meaning human, and kainos, meaning new. Early signs of the Anthropocene starts in the 1950s due to traces of plutonium-239. Paul J. Cruzen and Eugene F. Stormer are the two guys that coined the term Anthropocene in the year 2000.
The Anthropocene Working Group, or AUG, was first created by two groups under the guidance of the Subcommission of Quaternary Stratigraphy and the International Committee of Stratigraphy.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change may have denied Anthropocene working groups' request to make Anthropocene the new epoch. It still sees the importance of using the Anthropocene as a term. The Anthropocene working group states that the Anthropocene led to ocean rising and acidification, cycles of elements imbalance and acidification, habitat and ecological disruption, and technofossils. Even during the Industrial Revolution, when the climate was changing, writers such as Charles Dickens and his book A Christmas Carol and Oliver Twist have vivid imagery of the Industrial Revolution. Environmental historian J.R. McNeill labeled the increase that occurred starting around 1950 as the Great Acceleration, the same year as the term Anthropocene has started. The Great Acceleration was due to the rise of human populations, starting in the 1780s where there was less than a billion, in the 1930s when it's 2 billion, and now currently we have 8 billion. The causes of the Anthropocene. American scientist Eunice Newton-Foote had argued that atmospheric water vapor and carbon dioxide could interact with solar rays to raise the Earth's temperature. The history of oil extraction. When oil was discovered by Europeans in the region shortly before World War I, Western corporations and governments quickly acted to establish a means of controlling the oil. An example of this is Kirk, Iraq. Britain discovered the oil in Iraq and decided to use their colonial influence to extract oil from Iraq, which led to local urban life transformations, which led to straining relationships between different groups within the diverse city's population. Current sources of fossil fuel. The United Nations reports that fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas comprise over 75% of global greenhouse gases and almost 90% of carbon dioxide emissions. As you can see from this figure of the top largest oil producers, major exporters are US, Saudi Arabia, and Russia, then China and Canada, and then finally the rest of the Middle East. However, as you can see from the top 10 largest consumers of oil, it is mostly high GDP countries such as US, China, India, Russia, Japan, and other countries. You can see the height of GDP on this graph. Together, the US and China account for 42% of global GDP. And as you look back to the consumers, US and China has the same height of consumption. Only 18 countries have a greater than 1% share of the global economy. Big players includes the US, China, Japan, India, France, Italy, UK, Germany, Russia, Brazil, and Canada, who have all bigger GDPs in the trillion. Emissions are not the only important term here. It's also per capita, or per person. As you can see, China has a big megatons of emissions. However, per capita, they only have 8.1, compared to US's 15.5 and Russia's 12.5. The EU has 6.5 per capita ton, and India only has 1.9. The US is 7 times more potent per capita than India, and 2 per person for China. China has only produced about a quarter of the cumulative amount of CO2 emissions of Western nations since 1750. Climate change as part of a compounding ecological crisis. Scientists have shared a framework called the Triple Planetary Crisis. The components of the Triple Planetary Crisis are climate change, air pollution, and biodiversity loss due to Anthropocene.
An example of our ecological crisis are fires in Greek, Australia, California, Canada, and Hawaii, burning up because of dry and windy conditions. You think fires are bad? In Iran, it reached the highest point of temperature, being 158 Fahrenheit. It's ironic too. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, floods are getting 300 to 900% more flooding. In addition to more water, Hurricane Ian has damaged the United States, causing $112 billion of damage. With more droughts in the Horn of Africa, being more severe by upwards of 100 times more than any other normal drought. We call those super droughts. With more financial issues such as insurance is going up because more weather damage leads to insurances needing more money to give more money to people being hurt by these weather events. Is leading to insurances going up, with people with less insurance have to pay more to even repair these damages. In addition, people are migrating a lot because of weather. 30 million people are migrating and being displaced from their homes.